Today I'm going to tell a strange tale of a man who's a direct descendant of Walter Raleigh. Raleigh. His name was Dr. Walter Raleigh Amesbury. He was from the Rutland, Mass area, and he died in 1926. But what happened was on Christmas Day, the doctor's wife was shot in their home. 2 years later, he pled guilty to second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. The influenza epidemic in 1917 came along, and he used all his physician skill, entered the ranks of the heroes, working day and night to save the lives within the gray walls at Charleston. A martyr on his prison pals, and Dr. Amesbury suffered a breakdown and was taken to the prison camp. Now, that usually happened when there was something wrong. You went to the Rutland prison camp. I'm going to go back to the year 1907. It's Christmas Day, and a shocking crime took place in the Hyde Park section of Boston, Mass. Dr. Walter R. Amesbury shot and killed his wife, Anna Edwards Amesbury, in front of their two sons, Annie and his mother, just as the family was preparing to sit down for Christmas dinner. He was arrested by a police officer, Robert Grant, and from that point on, things were difficult for him. He was born Walter Raleigh Amesbury in Harlow, England, in 1859. He was the oldest son of Joseph Walter Raleigh Amesbury, a surgeon major in the Indian Medical Services, and the direct descendant of Sir Walter Raleigh. Many articles about the shooting dwell on the late ancestry, as if to say how he might have fallen. As a young man, Walter served as a military officer in the Second Anglo-Afghan War. His first wife, Amphenia, died in 1883, just 2 years into their marriage, and it was sometimes after the death that Amesbury immigrated to the United States. Anna Edwards was born in Cincinnati in 1867. She was an accomplished musician, and it had been written that she was a young musician who was graduated from conservatory in Cincinnati, came to Boston to cultivate her voice at the New England Conservatory of Music. She was a soloist at the Grace Church, the best known and most fashionable church in Providence. Then she became a professor of vocal culture at Roanoke College in Virginia. They were married on 22 June 1886 and had two sons, Walter Jr. and Ira, born in 1887 and 1890. But the marriage was troubled. They speculate that there were problems with money, and there was a lot of jealousy. But at this time, on Christmas of 1907, Anna was teaching in Virginia, and he lived in Milford, Mass. They had gathered at the home of her mother, Jenny Reese, in a third-floor apartment on Metropolitan Avenue in Hyde Park. This was an attempt for a reconciliation orchestrated by Jenny, Walter Jr., and Ira. It states that Walter was never invited. Either way, Walter wanted to reconcile, but Anna categorically said no. There was a heated argument, and he fired 2 shots from a .22 caliber revolver. The poor injured Anna tried to run from the apartment, but collapsed and died in the hallway, with her sons wrestling the gun from their father. At first, he pleaded not guilty and claimed the shooting was accidental. He later changed his plea to guilty on the second degree. But, he did bring a gun to Christmas dinner. He admitted to buying it that day. And, he came to his mother-in-law's house, maybe not by invite. He'd gotten into an argument the first time and had left. But he returned an hour later, and that was when he shot and killed his wife. It made the front page in the Boston Globe, and it reads, "Killed wife who left him. Dr. Amesbury shot her in Hyde Park. She refused his final offer to live with him again. He was jealous of the spouse." The story spread far and wide, and the description that I quoted comes from an article printed in New Zealand. Walter R. Amesbury was convicted and sentenced to life in prison on 11 January 1909. Arresting officer Robert Grant didn't write much about his case, and it didn't include a diary, but he did visit Amesbury in prison on more than one occasion over the years and recorded his death from the flu on 17 March 1926. That's kind of ironic because what happened is you'll hear of why he was considered a hero to some. Mrs. Amesbury is buried at the Fairview Cemetery in Boston. Now, like I said, the story goes that he was a prisoner at a prison, and he dedicated, in 1917, he dedicated the whole livelihood of himself to save the lives of so many people. He was known as the Pale Doctor, and he just went everywhere and never asked for any compensation. Unfortunately, he was under the impression that he was going to be given a pardon by the governor of Massachusetts, but that never came to end. He died still waiting for somebody to forgive him for what he had done.